60 seconds, 6 engines firing at once. That is the final number for Ship 40. But to reach that number, it had to attempt the test twice. The first time, only one engine was ignited. Then the ship turned back with no explanation given. 3 days later, another truth came to light. Massey's, the site testing both Ship 40 and Ship 41, has only one single test stand. And that fact is dictating the entire pace of the Starship program. We will walk through each piece, why it stopped midway, why it came back, and why a single test stand matters this much. Ship 40 rolled out of Mega Bay 2 on June 23rd, headed straight for Massey's. This was a daytime rollout, captured clearly by Starship Gazer. The ship rolled along Highway 4, took a few familiar turns, then disappeared behind a small rise. From Highway 4, the Massey's test site is almost impossible to see because the terrain there has a small hill that blocks the line of sight. On June 24th, the ship was loaded with liquid oxygen and partially loaded with methane. This was most likely an igniter test, checking the ignition system before detanking to prepare for the next step. On June 25th, Ship 40 fully loaded both propellants and carried out a single-engine static fire. SpaceX itself posted a video of this test on X, confirming that it had taken place. But they did not use the word successful. No further comment followed. And immediately after, the ship turned back toward the production site, so quickly that many people watching Starbase Live had not even had time to react. An anomaly. A test that ran longer than it should have. A single-engine static fire is normally just a confirmation step preceding the main test, the 6-engine static fire. Typically, it is a short test, sufficient only to confirm the engine ignites correctly, lasting a few seconds before shutdown. But according to Starbase Flyover report, this particular single-engine test ran considerably longer than the standard single-engine tests observed before previous flights. This is not a minor difference. If a test that would normally require only a few seconds instead runs significantly longer, it is likely that the technical team was gathering data during an extended burn, possibly to check engine performance under longer than usual operating conditions, or to monitor the response of a specific sensor over time. Consider it this way. When test driving a new car, starting the engine for a few seconds, then shutting it off, only confirms that it can start. But holding the engine idling for several minutes means you are looking for something that develops over time. Temperature, oil pressure, stability. The unusually extended static fire of Ship 40 carries the hallmarks of this second kind of test. This remains an inference based on the test's duration, not a confirmation from SpaceX regarding its specific purpose. But it changes how we should interpret the next step, a step that many Starbase followers mistook as a sign of a problem. Ship 41 cuts in, evidence of a real bottleneck. 3 days later, on June 28th, Ship 41 was placed onto a brand new thrust simulator, equipment never before used for transport, out to Massey's. Thanks to footage from Avid Space and VIX, we see Ship 41 carry out not one, but 2 consecutive cryo tests on the night of June 29th. It then returned to the production site on the 30th. 2 ships, 2 entirely different tests, within the same week, at the same site. This was only possible for one single reason. Massey's has exactly 1 static fire stand, not 2, not 3, 1. Picture a massive production line, turning out product after product every week, yet served by only a single quality inspection station for the entire line. Every product, regardless of how quickly it is manufactured, must still wait its turn for inspection. That is precisely what is happening at Massey's right now. SpaceX is not short on ships. It is not short on materials, nor on manpower. What it is short on is the physical testing capacity needed to keep pace with its own production speed. This explains why Ship 40 had to leave the stand immediately after the single-engine test, even though that test appeared to run longer than originally planned. The stand needed to be freed so that Ship 41 could proceed with its already scheduled cryo test timeline. Not because Ship 40 had suffered a serious fault. This is a crucial detail because it reverses how much of the community interpreted this week's events. It is easy to look at a ship abruptly heading back to the factory and conclude that something had broken. But once placed alongside Ship 41's timeline, the picture becomes far more coherent. This was a cue, not an incident. There has been no official statement from SpaceX confirming this, but the data on the test's duration, combined with the precise alternating sequence between the two ships, points to this as the most probable scenario. The second attempt, 6-engine static fire. After Ship 41 had completed its tests and departed, Ship 40 returned to Massey's a second time, this time at night. And this time, it carried out exactly the test the entire community had been waiting for. A full 6-engine static fire, lasting roughly 60 seconds. If you have watched footage of this, pay close attention to the exhaust plume. Shockwave patterns ripple through the flame. A visually striking effect, but also a sign that pressure and temperature are reaching their peak. Above the launch mount, a pyrocumulus cloud formed. The type of cloud that builds up from intense heat, commonly seen during large wildfires or volcanic eruptions. Place the two figures side by side. The first attempt, 1 engine running for an unusually extended duration. The final attempt, 6 engines, 60 seconds, exactly as originally planned. If the total burn time across all 6 engines is added together, the figure reaches into the hundreds of engine seconds, compressed into a single minute. And it succeeded. The fact that the ship returned and completed the pivotal test within just a few days stands as the strongest evidence that this was a scheduling interruption tied to the test stand, not a technical failure. Had there truly been a serious flaw in the engine or the structure, the likelihood of Ship 40 returning and clearing the hardest test within just a few days would be very low. While the static fire stand was handling 2 ships back-to-back, another story was quietly unfolding at Massey's itself, one that has received far less attention than it deserves. The nose cone jail, the test stand used for tank-type test articles, is being reinforced. According to Starbase flyover report, massive reaction frames, pre-assembled earlier at Sanchez, have been mounted onto 2 adjacent upright posts on the test stand. Their design allows load to transfer straight down into the base and straight up into the top, much like a load-bearing skeleton within a high-rise building, distributing weight evenly down to the foundation rather than concentrating it at a single point. During the second flyover of the same week, the flyover report team spotted 2 additional frames mounted in a V formation, creating a central load-bearing point. The old hexagonal frame's top section was removed entirely and left lying on the ground. A new, sturdier top section, also shipped directly from Sanchez, arrived on site precisely on Saturday. This is not routine maintenance. This is a deliberate upgrade, and a large-scale one. As soon as it was completed, the booster lock's landing tank, the familiar test article, was dropped back into that exact position to undergo another round of testing. The flyover report team themselves acknowledged they are not entirely certain whether this reinforcement is intended specifically for the lock's landing tank or for an entirely new test article recently spotted inside the factory. Super Crusher, a test stand swapping roles. There's another detail which, when placed side by side with the above, brings the picture into sharper focus. At the very moment the nose cone jail is being reinforced, in a different section of Massey's, the Super Crusher, test stand designated B18.3, is undergoing a major transformation. The crusher cap and half-barrel section have been removed. All of the pull-down rods have been uninstalled and set aside. Most of the external actuators, including the 5 pull-down rams, the top torsion ram, and most of the grid fin test equipment, have all been disconnected. It would seem as though this test stand is being dismantled entirely. But here lies the surprise. Just below, the lower ring of the stand is in fact gaining new hardware. 2 rams are mounted at a sharp angle, converging on a single point on the test tank, along with 6 single actuators mounted on black frames. These frames connect directly to the very same load-spreading frames we just discussed at the nose cone jail. And here is the most striking detail. They align precisely with the upper mounting points of the lock's landing tank, matching the exact configuration observed back in April. In other words, 2 seemingly separate test stands are, in fact, swapping roles with one another almost simultaneously. If SpaceX is genuinely preparing infrastructure for a new generation of test articles, as certain signs at the factory suggest, then the single test stand bottleneck discussed above may well be only a temporary condition. Once testing capacity is genuinely expanded, the pace of testing at Massey's could increase substantially. This remains a conditional hypothesis, not a confirmed fact. A gap worth addressing. Honestly, road safety. There is another aspect of this week. Not good news, but one that needs to be acknowledged for the picture to be complete. As Ship 41 moved along Highway 4 toward Massey's, the road closure was not completed in time. According to what was recorded on Starbase Live, several vehicles were caught and had to move onto the shoulder to pass at the very moment the ship was moving nearby. This information comes from a single direct observational source, so the confidence level here is medium. This was not an incident officially confirmed by any agency, but it is worth noting, given its contrast with what took place only a few days later. On June 30th, during the upper deck deluge tests, the operations team proactively and fully closed the road before beginning the test. This is worth acknowledging, since wind could carry the deluge water directly across the roadway, a situation that could pose genuine danger if left uncontrolled. So why the difference between the two situations? There is no evidence to suggest this reflects a systemic issue. It is more likely a minor coordination lapse that happened to occur exactly as Ship 41 was in transit. But as the frequency of rollouts between the factory and Massey's continues to increase, as this very week demonstrated, with 2 major rollouts within 5 days, any small gap in safety procedure warrants closer monitoring going forward. A reliable analysis channel must be willing to acknowledge what is not yet perfect, not only its achievements. If you found this analysis useful, hit like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss upcoming updates on Massey's, since the infrastructure here is changing week by week. Now, let us bring everything we have covered together. A single static fire stand, handling 2 ships back-to-back within the same week, forcing Ship 40 to stop midway through its single-engine test, even though that test clearly ran longer than usual and may have been gathering critical data in the process. A tank test stand undergoing urgent reinforcement, situated right beside another stand that is swapping roles with it. A signal that testing capacity at Massey's may soon be expanding. And a small gap in road safety procedure surfacing precisely as rollout frequency is rising, something a genuinely honest analysis channel cannot afford to overlook. These 3 threads, at first glance, appear separate, but in truth, they are telling one single story, an infrastructure system racing to keep pace with its own production speed. This is further reinforced when we turn to the construction site. Booster 21 has completed full stacking. Booster 22's stacking process has officially begun, with the common dome section and A2 barrel section having just been transferred directly from the factory into Mega Bay 1. In other words, SpaceX's production line shows no sign of slowing down. If anything is lagging behind that pace, it is most likely the physical testing capacity. The very capacity we have just watched straining to process Ship 40 and Ship 41, one after another, week after week. And that leads to a far larger question, one that extends well beyond this single week's static fire. If testing capacity at Massey's is not expanded in time, what happens once Booster 22 is complete and requires that same single test stand? The answer lies in exactly what the infrastructure at Massey's is quietly preparing for right now. Massey's still leaves one question open: whether testing capacity can expand in time before Booster 22 needs it. Thank you for following this analysis with the Space Brief. If you found it valuable, hit like, leave a comment with your own perspective, share it with anyone following Starbase, and subscribe to the channel. Related videos are waiting right here on screen.